All right. Our second episode. Wait, I can't hear you.
Hello, check 1, 2.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
I've been here all along. Let's try this. Is that better?
Well, it's better because there's words that are audible now.
Awesome.
All right. We just had Doug Weissman, second time visitor to Moped Outlaws, and author of Girl in the Ashes.
He's such a joy to hang out with. You guys are in for a treat. The episode will just blow by. You won't even notice the time going by. It's full of surprises. His book is really amazing, and there's a short read by me in there that me auditioning to be his audiobook voice.
I think you nailed it. I think he's going to be calling you.
Great. And be sure to check out what he says at the end, because there's a special offer for Moped Outlaws listeners on the book, and you'll want to check that out. Be sure to subscribe, and also, put thumbs up on this particular episode, and reach out to Douglas. He's a really great guy, and he's a great writer and deserves our support. And enjoy the episode.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Stuur zeker wegen dem.
Joh je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws, and we're here with
Douglas Weissman, author, traveler, and all-around wise guy.
and lover of oh no, I just forgot his name, the actor. Oh, Nick Cage.
The actor. That's what you said. The
Right.
actor. That's
Nicholas. Yeah.
The actor formerly known as.
And you have a new book out.
I do. It's all about Nicolas Cage. I'm kidding. It's not. It's not about Nicolas Cage at all. However, I would read that. I would.
I think it's coming. He can't miss this opportunity. It's got to be there.
I would, if there was either a book, like a biography about Nick Cage, or a fake biography about Nick Cage, I would read both of those.
Maybe that's your next book.
It should be. I'll use. I won't use his name though. It'll be like, Frick Mage.
Right. There we go.
Yeah. Nobody will know.
Well, did you guys see that movie that came out where he played himself? And I think that, like,
Yeah. The unbearable weight. What is it? The unbearable weight of massive talent.
yeah,
Yes.
something like that. Yeah.
That was everything I hoped it would be and more.
And then Norm Macdonald, who's a favorite, put out his like fake autobiography. I forget what he called it. Like, if this was an autobiography, it would be, or something like that.
Oh, did any of you see either you two see the Weird Al biography?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which was amazing. I loved it. But when interviewed, he said, somebody asked him, "Oh, what inspired you to do this movie now?" And he said, "Well, I saw the Queen biopic and I thought I could make up a story about my life."
That's kind of a jab, isn't it?
It's a little, but I'll let Weird Al get away with it.
Yeah, it's true.
He's been getting away with great stuff for so long.
Yeah, and his movie showed it.
Yeah. And Mark was on our last guest, Mark was talking about how accordions are just torture devices. And I was thinking of Weird Al. I didn't mention anything, but I think
Now's the time.
like he's made accordions very cool.
I actually love the accordion. It was between Weird Al and Gogol Bordello. I don't know if you know them. They're like a Eastern European gypsy punk band that I was obsessed with in kind of the early 2000s. And they made me want to play the accordion hardcore. And I never have, but I brought it up to my dad. My uncle, huge musical talents. They played the accordion, they played the trumpet, the trombone, the piano. They just could play any instrument. And my dad looked at me and said, yeah, your uncle has it. It's been in his closet for like 30 years. So ask him for it. He'll probably give it to you. And this is where I think torture device is true. When you know how to play it, it is incredible. When you practice playing it, it sounds like, I don't know, a bunch of cats in a bag that you're swinging over your head.
Yeah, I think
The only thing worse is a bagpipe.
Oh, there is, I forget, I think it's like Ohio University or something, University of Ohio, but there is a university in America that has a separate building for bagpipe practicing because it's so loud and terrible.
That's right. Well, I think Bon Scott made bagpipes cool.
I thought it was Roddy Roddy Piper, but that's just me.
I'd say.
I think we're ready for a bagpipe, dance band, like DJ.
Ooh. If somebody could do that mixtape, that's like bagpipe, accordion, Elton John.
Oof.
I was going to say Irish clog dancing.
Well, that has to be how you dance to it.
The river dance.
Yeah.
See, we're already 10 times more entertaining than we were in the first 5 minutes than our last episode. It's so good to have you back, Doug. I was going over our last call and just going, wow, this was a lot of fun. And we haven't even gotten into, your new book or anything. I read some of your new book.
You did? How'd you do that?
Oh, the internet has ways, like especially Apple. Apple can take you through like the first 4 or 5 chapters.
Wow.
And it's not even out yet, right? At the time of this taping, it hasn't actually hit the shelves yet.
As the time of this taping, it came out yesterday.
Oh, okay, great.
Wow.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. So Life Between Seconds was your book before.
Yep.
And now you've got Girl in the Ashes.
Yeah. I have to just say this. I'm a little disappointed that Apple lets you read 4 chapters consecutively, and I'd rather have it give you 4 random pages in a row. Like, so not 1, 2, 3, 4, but page 1, page 57, page 18.
Yeah, what if it gives away the climax and you're like, oh, I fucking know who did it now. I don't need to buy the book.
Well, it doesn't do that. It just gives, and Amazon, same thing. Like I'm up on the Amazon page, I can read all the way up through chapter 5 or whatever the label 4, 5 means.
Luckily, every chapter is only 1 page. So no, I'm teasing. It's actually more.
Do you self-publish? Are you self-publishing your books?
No, they're traditionally published.
Nice.
Which is,
congratulations.
Thank you. It's for me, knowing how much goes into self-publishing and how much I would have to sit there and do everything myself or pay so much more to have other people do it. It's actually easier, I think, to just have somebody do it for me. And so I'm not saying it's easy, but man, I see what people who self-publish do and the way that they have to push and market and PR their own stuff. And I'm not saying none of that's there for me, but it is far less than what I see them having to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's awesome that you've reached the level where your publishing company is able to promote and distribute and print and work with you on this level. How much of that do you think is related to the success you've had with the travel publishing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd love to say everything, but they're just totally mutually exclusive. It's just 2 different markets. So although I can demonstrate my viability as saying, look, I have a history of publication in that space. So you know that when I come to you, I have a level of professionalism and dedication to my craft. It doesn't prove that I'm marketable or that my writing is any good in this space. So they're not necessarily willing to take a leap on that. But with those efforts, that's been all my own, because my publishing company for this book is different than my publishing company for the last book, which is different than my publishing company for the 7 books before it. So it's, although I admit my stupidity, I never actually went to my last publisher and said, hey, I have this other book. Do you want to read it? And I started the whole stupid process of looking for people again. However, I'm very happy with this publisher. So I'm not going to say that it was a bad choice. It was actually turned out great.
Yeah. I went looking for the other 6 books and I had a hard time finding them. I didn't find them. Why is that? I put your name in Google and only 2 books come up.
Well, because I buried them deep underground in a vault that no one's ever going to be able to find. And you just ran.
Nicolas Cage asked to read them.
Yeah, this is where the internet breaks. I've broken the internet. Congratulations to me.
Yes. Well done.
So the first 7 books were part of a book contract that I had. So they weren't actually my ideas or my concepts. There was a publishing company looking for YA books material and had the concept already planned out, at least the vague idea. And I went to them and said, okay, well, I can take this idea, put it into the 6 books that you want, and this would be what happens in book 1, book 2, book 3, right? So it's broken down to every book and also the main arc of the entire series. The thing was, they had a grant for this because it was supposed to reach reluctant readers. It was going out to libraries more than it was going out to bookstores. And within that ecosystem, librarians, who I love dearly, are also the gatekeeper to what people can and will read. And if this is going to a school library specifically and not even a public library, they're going to have rules on what they allow into their library. And a story about a bunch of orphans who hijack a cruise liner and end up on a desert island that has themes of Lord of the Flies meets Mad Max, but also, you know, what a bunch of teenagers on an island unsupervised. There's going to be some nefarious things going on. Yeah, librarians did not want that kind of thing necessarily in their library. And I don't blame them for it. It was kind of a gap in the analysis of what we were looking at versus what people actually would allow. And but I'm proud of those books. It just didn't amount to as much as we all had hoped in that space. So it's hard.
You're so proud of them. They aren't on your website either.
Yeah, exactly. Again, because they're so hard to find. Why even promote it?
Got it.
Actually, I'm hoping in like 10 years, there's just going to be some random people, by random, probably my family, who are the only people who actually bought the set. And they're going to be collector's items. And they're going to be like, look, we have all 6 books from this series you can't find from this semi-famous random person who wrote, I don't know, in 10 years, maybe I'll have 4 other books at this rate. We'll see. Or just a movie about Nick Cage. We'll see.
Or maybe those 6 books will become a Netflix series.
Honestly, it would be, I would laugh at just the irony of the hidden books becoming the series instead of like all the other things that I throw at Netflix. Hey, we want to make a movie about these things? No, but we'll take the ones that you have been hiding.
Well, if they got that kind of teenage chaos going on, that seems to be a Netflix flavor, an HBO.
Yeah. I mean, it'll fit somewhere. All they got to do is make sure they got access to a cruise ship and a lot of ice, and you're fine.
So hilarious. So it was hard going to read Girl in the Ashes. Like, there's an element to this book that challenges the reader from word one. Was that conscious on your part? Like the level of intensity? Okay, level of intensity, yes. As long as you're not saying the word choice was a struggle. No, the syntax and the flow were awesome.
Yeah.
Like the way that you construct sentences and paragraphs, it's full of the 3Ds. And what are the 3Ds, by the way?
Greg, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Dander, dandruff, and dilly-dally.
I'm pretty sure I do have all of those, plus dandelions.
Oh, well, there's 4. If you're a pro, there's 4. For us amateurs, 3.
Daring.
All right, now we're on 5.
Well, I have daring dandelions in my yard.
So I didn't read anything from Girl in the Ashes. So what is the intensity that you're speaking of, Mark and Doug?
Well, if you'd like, if you'll permit me, I will demonstrate. Are you up for that, Douglas? Can I read the first part?
Someone on our podcast? Wow, Jesus.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, this is me auditioning to do your audiobook. You ready?
All right.
Mr. Marode was naked and strapped to the table. A cloth muffled his voice. Odette put on gloves with precision, taking care that each finger slid effortlessly into place. She wished she could burn her fingerprint into his cheek, remind him of the burns he gave his daughter, how he let the cinders brand her shoulder, her legs, or how he ashed her cheroot in her hair. She had followed him for a week, watched as the cigar glowed in his home's midnight darkness, listened to screams as the embers cooled on his daughter's skin each night after dinner, as his wife dipped the dishes in soapy water and hid behind the sounds of the radio. Odette was eager to shove a cigarette into Mr. Morode's eye, but she didn't smoke. She flicked his ear instead.
Okay, I think we get it.
I know ear flicking is really where people go, ooh, because they know how that feels.
Yeah. Burning cinders on a little girl's shoulders, I could deal with that. But when you start flicking her ears.
Yeah. That's when people.
Yeah, there's so much descriptive, juicy content in there. Like the picture that formed in my mind when I first read it was amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I have to say, you were the first person I have heard read that out loud to me, other than myself. So I got chills, which I feel like makes me sound a little pretentious or like an asshole, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I'd say human. You're listening to something that is intense.
Yeah.
Chills.
It helps me that I haven't had anybody read it out loud. So I was able to get through it because it just gets worse from there.
There's probably like the little boy in you going, why are you writing this? Holy fuck.
Yeah, part of me. There were moments. I think it's why, well, personally, I have no gauge of this, but I think I don't dwell on any torture for too long because I feel like I can't take it. But I feel like I have enough for people to cringe long enough for them to get it. And then we move on, as opposed to torture porn, because I can't deal with that.
Well, I read it and I was both like taken aback at the intensity and the descriptiveness of it. But then I was also drawn in immediately, like, oh, I want to find out where this goes. Why is this girl doing this to this person? What the hell's going on? And how is the girl in ashes revealing the complexity of the human condition?
Ah, there we go. And do you feel you found that out in the first 4 chapters that Apple let you read as a sample?
No, actually, what I love about it is she continues to be an enigmatic mystery that unfolds like the spring petals on a flower, a little bit more colorful every day.
That was good. Did you have that one?
How many chapters are in the book?
That's a good question. I don't actually remember how many chapters are in the book. I think somewhere around 40.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
All right, so 4 is not really giving a whole lot away.
It doesn't. It will give you access to the story. It'll give you, let's see, by chapter 4, it'll probably give you an introduction to all the working characters, except maybe one. And so, yeah, I think 4 chapters is actually a good amount for this book.
And what drew you to this area of the topic that you're writing about?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in World War II history. It's just, I mean, being Jewish, raised in the Jewish community, having grandparents that fought or were stationed in the Pacific Theater during World War II, but then also having family members, community members that were affected by the Holocaust, and then that intergenerational trauma that comes from that period. Yeah, I was always intrigued by it. And I always grew up listening to stories of survivors just because they'd come to my temple and they'd share their story, or they were at dinner, or however it was. We were just surrounded by it. And then I went to so that's one part. All right. This is separate from the other part, which I feel like I have to provide that context. I was up in wine country in California for my cousin's wedding, and I was with my wife. And we were watching Dexter a lot at the time. I'd never seen it. And she was like, it's one of my favorite shows. We have to share this, okay? And we were just kind of out of context, but still in whatever way her mind was working. She was staring out the window and thought, it would be interesting to have a female serial killer in Paris during World War II. And I thought, yes, it would be interesting. Let's explore that more. And that's what happened. And this came out, and there was so much rich information that came out through research, including there was an actual serial killer that existed in Paris at that time. And so there are some Easter eggs about that existence within the story, which will not be in the first 4 chapters, but anybody who knows that person will kind of find those hints and clues, which I think is also fun. But it was about, for me, exploring Holocaust education in a new way, because we have, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, we have a lot of books that take place during World War II that focus on the Holocaust, and that's great. And a lot of them kind of focus on the same thing, you know, do-gooder understanding something bad is happening and trying to do something better, even within the context of all of the other things happening. And that's fine. Or coming from the purview of Holocaust, you know, someone who's involved within a concentration camp or in a ghetto, which is great. And I think all those stories are necessary. However, I wanted this to be a little different because I wanted it to be focused on those who might not be interested in World War II, or might not be interested in Holocaust fiction, or might not be interested in all of the other things that I think are important to this genre and this time period, to then bring it up. So it's supposed to be this Trojan horse of saying, here is a character, she is a serial killer, so it ticks off true crime interest. She's in World War II Paris, so people are interested in Paris or World War II. And at the same time, that morally gray area of she's going to be doing something terrible, but for the right reasons. And will you get on board with that?
Wow, that's such a fascinating topic where the hero is actually a villain in society.
Yeah.
I think it's a really creative undertaking to pull off.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if I pulled it off, but the book is out, so you can find out.
Mark seems very intrigued with the first 4 chapters. So.
I am. The more I read, the more I was like, okay, I'm going to end up buying this book. And I dug even deeper into my thoughts about it. And I was like, how does someone who has your background and your, you know, community feel about putting a swastika on the cover of their book?
Wow, you know, the funny thing is, didn't even occur to me to connect those dots until you just said it out loud. Within the context of it, I think that's why. Because it's not like it's not tattooed on somebody's arm, or maybe as Manson would have it on his forehead. It's just part of a flag that was contextual of the time period. And it's weird because I have a stack of the books now in this box next to my desk, and now I'm kind of looking at them thinking, oh, well, I don't want that in my office.
Well, you know, that's interesting because the background that we chose for this episode is a letter from a German Nazi time. So that in the corner by our logo, there's a swastika. And I purposely didn't put the whole thing in because I was like, I can't fucking put that.
Yeah, I just noticed it now. It's just off screen with kind of, you get the Iron Eagle up there with just the wing. All right.
Are you willing to hold up the book so we can see the cover? Are you up for that, Doug?
I am, but you'll have to give me a second to go off screen to go get it.
Yeah. We'll say something funny while you do that.
Yeah,
if
please
you can.
Think about me.
We'll make a funny Nazi joke.
Yeah, there aren't any of those. Yeah.
Draw in the ashes.
Yeah.
Doug, but you use your full name, Douglas Weissman.
Yeah, it's funny. I use my full name for. Maybe I'll put it right here if you can see it.
There you go.
For future interviews, it'll be there.
That's perfect. You're just getting the swastika. That's it. That's
exactly.
perfect.
That's all you need. All you need. Jewish name with a swastika next to it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, as a creator, did you find any challenges in getting into the psyche of a serial killer? Like it starts resonating a little too real.
Luckily, it was actually cathartic to kill fake people instead of real people. So I'll put that out there for the FBI. But I will admit that Odette was originally supposed to be a sociopath, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't make her make these choices on purpose while not giving her that sense of moral responsibility. And again, that connection with Dexter, where Dexter had this teacher that taught him kind of right from wrong just to not get caught. I mean, that was the whole point. It didn't mean that he had a sense of right or wrong instilled in him. It just meant, if I do this, I will get caught and that will be bad. So I need to follow these rules. And I just didn't feel like that was inside Odette, and that was inside this character, especially at that point in time where I didn't want it to be didn't want to have a moralistic tale, but I did want to make her more human because of just the contextuality of that time period. And it makes it layered and it makes it more difficult when she's already making these choices based upon her experience of doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. And now that the noose is kind of tightening around Paris and therefore around her, is she still willing to make those wrong and tough choices? Or is she just going to make it easy for herself moving forward? So I didn't kill anybody real.
So I started watching the second iteration of Dexter. And I'm wondering, have you watched the second iteration of Dexter, and did it fall short for you when you watched it?
Did it fall short for me? I did watch it. I don't think it fell short for me because I kind of just knew where it was going to go, and it hit the notes. I never watched the final season of Dexter, the original, because I just heard how much it fell short for everybody, and so I just ignored it. So when I came into the new iteration, I was like, all right, I feel like I know where this has to go, especially based on why everybody felt the last season just didn't hit those points, and it reached it. And there were a few things that did narratively fall short. Like, you had an entire FBI file and these people who specialize in this one thing, and you after you for XYZ that couldn't figure out, but your girlfriend kind of figures it out in like 5 minutes. It just didn't connect. Like, I'm glad that she was someone close who could do it because I liked her character, but at the same time, that piece, which was a very important piece, that fell short for me.
Yeah.
Sorry if I ruined it for everybody.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I should have.
Oops, late.
Yeah. Like I said before we started recording, it is my goal to just piss everybody off, so I nailed it.
Well, let's
You're
go
trying to
on.
piss me off, I'll tell you.
Let's just pull the rug out from everything. Darth and Luke are father and son. So
Yeah, but who's who?
Now we're getting into clone theory. Oh man. So what screenplays have you written? Like, I noticed on your website you've also listed screenplays. Has anything been made that we might have seen?
No, not yet. So a lot of the scripts that I wrote that were produced were private company kind of behind the scenes. This is what we do, or this is for a corporate retreat stuff. And I did work on that for a few years with my old brother-in-law. But with the screenplays that I want to get that are full features, they have not been optioned yet. I did win third prize in the Santa Barbara Film Festival for one of my scripts, which was very exciting. So anybody listening who's interested, I'll send you that way. But it's an area that I'm constantly exploring and trying to get deeper into, especially with Girl in the Ashes. Girl in the Ashes was not meant specifically for screen, right? Like, if you read, I don't know, perfect example is Da Vinci Code. If you read Da Vinci Code, it feels like you're reading a screenplay, right? And it just translates so easily, 1-to-1. You could just pop it on there. This was not meant for that, but I feel like it could just translate really easily to a limited series. Just one run, 10 episodes. Let's get this serial killer on the board.
Who would you want to play the main character, Odetta?
It took me, when did I submit this book? It took me about 2 years to get it published. I've been writing it for maybe 4 or 5 years. So that has changed over time, because I was like, oh, Lily Collins at one point I thought would be cool. Emma Roberts. I thought, oh, she'd be great for this role. And then there was one point where I was like, what's her name? Not Zoe Deschanel. Not Zoe.
Yes. I was going to say, that seems a little counter.
Yeah.
Teenage thing, the girl with the long wavy hair.
Yeah. I was like, so there was a lot of different concepts and types running through my head over time. And then I got to a point where it's finally published and I should have that answer just ready to shoot when somebody asks me. I don't know.
I actually think the I don't know answer is much more powerful, because if you present this to a director, that gives them the freedom to envision it for themselves, who their lead actress will be. And one of the things I've heard from the film industry is that when screenwriters start to put qualifications on the vision that the director has, it can make it a difficult production.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, if someone came to you, a producer, and said, "Okay, we'll give you 160,000 for the rights to this," and you're pretty much done. They'll make of it what they will.
Yeah.
Are you going to be okay with that? If
yes and no. I mean, I am of the belief. Now, being of a belief and actually being okay with it are two different things. But I'm of the belief that once my project's out in the world, there's nothing I can do about it. For example, now that the book's published, people are going to relate to characters, or they're going to relate to a certain part of the story, or imagine a character a specific way, whether I intended it or not. And I just have to be okay with that. I can't sit there whispering in everybody's ear, "Hey, no, this is actually what it's supposed to be. Stop fucking it up."
that's an analogy for.
Yeah, right. And that's how I feel about character too. The truth is, I generally don't envision them to be a specific way, with the exception of the physical characteristics I actually put into the story, which is usually something about the hair or maybe an eye color, but it's not like skin tone. It's not height. It could be, if it needs to be proportional in a certain way, where, for instance, one of the antagonists, Ilsa, is like a thin looming figure, but it's because of, like, I get it more because of her personality type, as opposed to me thinking she has to be thin and beautiful because she's German.
Yeah, but what about the Reacher books and Tom Cruise's Reacher?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "That's," and then the series that ended up on Amazon, everyone I know who was a fan was like, "Now we finally got Reacher."
You actually get like a 6'5" bulky dude, makes sense, as opposed to a 5'5".
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Tom Cruise is ripped, but he's not Reacher.
But as someone who knows nothing about the books, I thought the second one with Tom Cruise was a fine movie. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I never actually saw the second one. I enjoyed the first one. I mean, I think Tom Cruise is such a great action star.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I would never deny him an action moment. But in terms of, that's one of the things that I feel like gets in trouble when translating books to movies, is when authors spend so much time detailing what a character looks like in the book and it doesn't translate to the movie. Yeah, you're talking to a fan base. Like, I talked to a producer about trying to translate Girl in the Ashes to the screen before it was published, just to kind of learn more about what it'll take. And he even told me, if you don't move 70,000 units, so that's 70,000 copies of the book,
Right.
no one's going to want to turn it into a movie or a series or whatever. Okay, I trust his experience, definitely respect his experience. At the same time, that whole point is because they want to make sure that there's a built-in fan base.
Yeah.
And if I sit there and in detail describe Odette in a particular way, and they do not cast somebody, then you're already alienating the fan base you required in order to make it in the first place. So I just don't understand the thought process. But that's, I'm not part of the thought process. So there we go.
Well, it depends whose fan base is bigger. Like, if you have 70,000 units, but Tom Cruise has the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'd love to see Tom play Odette.
I think he could pull it off. You know who could pull it off? I don't even think I have to say it. I think you just know who could pull it off.
Well, let's not even say it then. We know who you're going to. And yes, the man can do anything.
Yes, he can. That's all I'm getting at. If you saw the Academy Awards, he's up on stage introducing Paul Giamatti for his role in, I forget the name of the movie Paul Giamatti was nominated for. And he's like, Paul, you wore a glass eye or a fake eye the entire time filming because that's the type of actor you are. And would I have done it? Hell yes, I would have done it. But you did do it. And it was, Nick, you get it. You just get it.
What about his vampire movie that came out a year ago? Did you see that?
I just watched it over the weekend.
Did you? I tried to watch it. It was a little chaotic.
It was definitely chaotic. I will give you that. I loved every second of it. I was there for the chaos, but it was just, I think it was Adam Mackey. I forget how to pronounce his name, but he's the same guy who did Step Brothers, same guy who did Big Short. And so it was he's kind of honed his own chaos, and you could see the elements, and I love the way he directs, but you could see the elements of him, but also in the little details, like the little signs, literal signs throughout the movie that add to this hilarious chain of events. And then, just the whole process. Nick Cage, Awkwafina. It was a great cast, and I was disappointed it took me so long to get around to watching it.
Yeah, and you call yourself a Nick Cage fan. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you have to prepare enough time to actually savor the meal. You can't just casually watch it while you're going over the, rushes.
Maybe that's what happened for me. I rushed into it. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like trying to, I don't know, snack on Oreos when you got a fillet in front of you.
But I hear if you put them in milk and put them in the microwave, they transform into a whole new dessert.
You talking about Nick Cage or Oreos?
Both, actually.
All right. I got to try them with both.
You dip your Nick Cage into the Oreos. Delicious.
Sounds like something Odette would do.
Honestly, yeah. Especially if it's fingers first.
Yeah. Finger looking good.
So since this was a 5-year project, it obviously has come up, I imagine, with family and close friends that are of Jewish faith and culture.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I don't think they really know what to expect because none of them have read it yet.
Okay.
Hopefully soon, though, now that it's available.
Okay, so it wasn't a topic of personal challenge amongst your family and peers.
No, not really. For my family and for my friends, again, we grew up, it was part of the conversation, which also means it was unfortunately part of a hell of a lot of jokes when we were in junior high or high school in terms of my friends or my brother. And
one of my favorite jokes is the Mercedes joke.
Wait, what's the Mercedes joke?
Come on, how many Jews can you fit in a Mercedes?
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I learned that at Hebrew school.
Exactly. See, I learned that one as a Volkswagen.
Okay.
Yeah, because none of my friends were rolling a Mercedes, Greg.
Well, we grew up differently. I was a real Jew.
For the guy in the group, what's the joke? I've never heard this.
I leave it to you.
How many Jews can you fit in a Mercedes?
I don't know. How many?
20. 2 in the front, 3 in the back, 15 in the ashtrays.
Oh, ow. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, ashtrays don't really exist in cars anymore, so the joke, I don't think, lands.
Yeah, smoking is such a
it's passe.
social, faux pas that.
Yeah.
Only custom cars in Europe still have it.
When I say my favorite thing, it means, ironically, or at least not really my favorite thing, would be if people start commenting on how bad that joke is because of the ashtrays and not because, of the dead ashen Jews in.
Right.
Which, speaking of which, that is one of the reasons why it's called Girl in the Ashes, by the way, was I spent a lot of time researching how you can, one of the reasons it took 5 years, trying to figure out how to hide a dead body. Not only difficult, but you also do wonder, are people monitoring my search history? And hopefully no one around me dies and disappears soon because I will be questioned. Luckily, nobody did. But within that, it was kind of this circularity, the idea of the gas chambers, the idea of the crematoriums, and then Odette actually just hiding bodies by burning them in a kiln and using them as clay to make items. And I thought it was interesting and unique. It was originally kind of the core concept, and then it became more of a tangential piece, but I still feel like it fit pretty well.
It's a great merch op for your coffee mugs.
Yeah. You don't know what this is made of. Don't ask.
There's a little bit of Odette in all of us. So was this a consistent 5-year endeavor, or were there times where you hit a wall or you shelved it and came back to it?
I would say that it was a consistent 5-year endeavor, but it wasn't so much 5 years of writing. It was the original idea. I think I wrote the first chapter in like a night because that was the thing that I just had an image of but then that chapter just sat there waiting for me to add on to it. Then came like a year of research. Like I just felt like I couldn't really do anything until I understood more about the logistics of the time period, what would actually work, what could she actually do, what was life like on a day-to-day basis, and even finding the pieces to put together. I found a couple books that worked super well, but then there were a lot of books that, one fact out of 350 pages was all I could pull, but it helped me along the way. It was also an intense COVID write because of lockdown, because all these things. I was so burnt out, like so many people. I was so burnt out. I was piecemealing together 5 different writing jobs a day. My daughter she was toddling around. So she was like 1.5, give or take, 1.5. So she's freshly running around. This is a new experience with having people at home, because I've worked remote since 2013, but now my wife's home, my daughter's home. We had our niece helping to watch our daughter a couple days a week, just so we could get some stuff done for work. It's of course really helpful, but we're still all in the same space, in a small space. So at the end of the day, I had a friend who was doing a writing salon. She's up in the Bay Area. She was doing a writing salon, and she said, okay, how about I give you the prompts? So I'm going to do them with my writing salon, and then I'll do them with you as well. And then I get to do extra writing. I was like, yeah, sounds good. She's like, we're only going to do 10 minutes a night, because that's how we start. And then we kind of bump it up to 20, bump it up to 30 until we're doing an hour. I was like, great. So after the first 2 weeks of 10 minutes a night, 6 nights a week, 10 minutes, she's like, okay, now we're going to do 20. And I said, no, I can't do 20. I don't have the mental capacity to do 20. I'm going to stick with 10 minutes. So 6 nights a week for 10 minutes, essentially over the course of about a year and a half, I pounded out this novel. And then it became a matter of revising the novel, revising it again, and then querying it, and then the editing and publication process.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's great. Like for me to hear, because I'm like, fuck, 10 minutes a night on anything.
Yeah.
Over the course of time, and you start realizing some dreams.
Yeah, that's truly it. It also is kind of a fun game. Like, okay, I got 10 minutes. How many words can I write? Or can I finish this entire scene? Or can we dismember this entire body in 10 minutes? Yeah.
Do you have a go-to reader that you give your stuff to first, like someone in your circle that you trust that you let them read and then take their feedback, or is it more randomized than that?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, no. I don't. No, I wish that I had. I have friends that I had from my writing community when I went to grad school, but it's so sporadic because everybody's so busy and it's hard. And I get it, that it's hard to dedicate that kind of time to somebody else's work when you got kids, when you got your job, when you got your own work you want to work, and et cetera, right? But I tend to, I don't know, like cut corners or kind of hack it in a way, rather than giving people in that same idea of 10 minutes, rather than giving people a 300-page book to read. I'm like, hey, could you just like read these 10 pages or 20 pages and see if they land? And if they're sitting there saying, I don't know what's going on, or I'm not connected to this character, or they're pulling things out, I'm like, okay, great. So I know that in pages 1 to 100, I have all this information that I don't return back to in some way from pages 100 to 150 that I can kind of filter in or whatever it is. So it helps me out that way. And then I also have, so it's not that dream of just having somebody read it. It's also partially me just being like, okay, how often do I have to read it before I feel like I'm ready to send it to other people as well, which is a really hard thing. I don't concentrate on periods or commas or whatever when I'm doing those revisions. I just concentrate on the big level stuff. And again, like if I cut out pages 1 through 25, how does this other stuff feel? Does it land? Does it sing? Does it not make sense? Let's move around this chapter and this chapter. Does it land better? Whatever. Doing that helps me disconnect. So it becomes somebody else's piece, so I can look at it as though I'm reviewing somebody else's work, as opposed to being really precious to my own piece of art.
Nice. Yeah, the fact that you're saying very easily, I take 25 pages out, and I've heard many writers say that's a real struggle for them. Like every word is a baby,
Well, let me reiterate, it doesn't mean I'm keeping them out.
Well, so when you are doing, let's say, Growing the Ashes, did you have your beginning, middle, and end as you started, or was it a process of discovery?
Oh, I am 100% a pantser, so it's all about process of discovery for me. Usually I have a first chapter just by happenstance. It's usually that impetus of inspiration, just like Girl in the Ashes. I sat down one night, I typed out that first chapter, and really that first chapter is the one thing that remained constant. Maybe a few tweaks here and there just to make it as immersive as it is and to focus on a couple things. The big thing about the first chapter, or any first chapter, in my opinion, is that it has to demonstrate both a level of sameness, but also what's different, right? Like, why are we concentrating on this moment in time rather than tomorrow or the day after? And it's because we're seeing her in her element, but something's off. And then we find out what's off at the end of the chapter. And so that just hit me. Okay, this is what needs to be here. And maybe I'll have an inkling of where it's got to go. Okay, well, if this is where I'm starting, then I need to get to this type of climax, but I have no idea how to get there. And then the rest is just kind of, all right, filling it in. Usually for me, what happens, I know I'm really different than a lot of writers, but I'll probably get to the climax maybe about 50% through the writing process. I'm like, okay, I have my climax, I have my beginning. Let's print out every chapter I've written. And now I'm going to see what gaps I have between the beginning and the climax. And then I take Post-it notes. I'm like, all right, I have this person in this chapter doing this thing, summarize what that chapter is about. It's color coded. So every Post-it note, it's like green for Odette and pink for this other character and whatever. And then I'll just move it around on my floor until it starts to connect in a way that feels dramatic enough and that tension is rising. But I am not a plotter. Every time I try to plot things out, it's like, all right, well, that worked up until chapter 2.
That's brilliant. I love the creative process you just shared. That's like, there's so much going on, like visually, how it feels in your body, the tension you're attempting to create. And it's like you're a chef, really, like ingredients, moving them around. And
just bringing in Nick Cage. I'm just sing through me. No, I appreciate it. If I was not a writer, I feel like I would have to be either a chef or an architect, just because of that kind of similar, just putting pieces together to figure out what works.
Yeah.
Of course, with a chef, you just make bad food if you fail. With an architect, a building falls down. So I'd probably not want that kind of pressure.
Well, I hope that there's engineers involved where they look at the blueprints of a bad building and go, nope, we're not going to build that.
Yeah, you'd hope. Right.
Just like you have an editor and a publisher that you could have turned in shit and they'd go, nope, Doug, we're not going to put that out in the world.
Also true. That's also why I didn't hear back from a few publishers, probably either because it was shit or because they read the first line and went, whoa.
All right. So Mark, you read the first chapter completely, right?
No.
Okay.
He read the first paragraph.
I read through the first page and then I began to experiment with ways that I might be able to display that on the show, and it failed. Because right now I'm looking at it in this background with this piece of software that I thought would allow me to post it so that you could see the text where my face is. And that didn't happen. And I went down the rabbit hole of, can I make this happen in a visual way on the technology? But I did read a few like other chapter beginnings because I wanted to pick the right one to read. And I wasn't even sure we'd get to do that. And what I landed on was chapter 4, because I think chapter 4 is a little bit more gentle in the way that it introduces you to the mood and the vibe. And I was like, but it's, what I loved about it? It still has all of the richness of color and texture and feeling, right? It's the first line is the scent of fresh peaches permeated the air, right? It turned Odette's cheeks flush. Like you use that. And then the first sentence of the book, there's this through line here of visual creation. Like you're putting scents and hearing and sights into my head. Right. And I think that's brilliant. I love that about your writing. And I'm guessing that there's a piece about that has evolved as a result of the travel writing, right? Because there's an element of travel writing where you want people to have the flavor of the experience. Am I right?
No, you're 100% correct. It's from my travel writing. I know that the more detail I try to provide visually, the less people can connect with it. So I have to find other senses that will create that idea of space and that idea of immersion. And usually sound and smell are the two best. And especially smell, where scientists, I hope that means they, otherwise it could just be like Frank and Carl down the street. So I assume it's scientists say that sense of smell is the most associated with memory.
Yeah.
And so for me, the idea of bringing up an aroma that is very specific, but at the same time obtainable. So I'm not talking about white truffle on a September morning. I'm talking about a peach. Most people have had connection to a ripe peach before. And so that smell is really vivid. Or if I just even say the word lemon, like your mouth is going to start watering just because you know what a lemon tastes like and that acid. So your memory or your brain makes the connection. And so I always try to lean on aroma or lean on sound more than I do with visual cues, because I feel like visual cues, people are actively trying to imagine a space and have more trouble both putting all the details into space and continuing forward, right? So it's like, if I'm sitting here imagining, okay, well, he said the chair's over there on the left and there's 4 paintings. Okay, now wait, what was the other thing that he said there was? And you're like, you don't necessarily notice it, but I feel like that's what's happening because I get hung up on that. And so I try to just only the important details that are really going to get you interested or immersed, and then fly forward.
Well, one of the things about chapter 4 that is also present is there's this tactile thing that happens in there, and the relationship between the peach and her sexual allure and her desire to want to have an experience with the peach, but she's also doesn't want to deal with people. Like, all of that in chapter 4 combines to create this kind of latent guilt about the witnessing my own desire around that thing. It's like, she's a ripe peach to me, and that I get caught up in that whole thing. So the experience of it was so rich in complexity, right? Because I'm drawn in by what's her tactile desire around the peach, and then what is the clerk she's talking to like actually hitting on her, and all of these different things. I love that about the way that you created that chapter. And I just imagine that the book is full of that kind of richness. And I just think it's a triumph. I just got to say it. I'm not sycophantic, but you deserve it. Like, you spent 5 years to achieve the poetic visual nature and sensual nature of just what I read in 2 or 3 chapters, or 2 or 3 headings in chapter 4 is amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you. Is this where I tell you that it was all ChatGPT?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that.
No, I'm teasing. It was not. No,
I know. I could tell. Like, that's the thing is if you've spent any time with ChatGPT, like I have, you can really tell now, right? Yeah. You can really tell what the difference is between something that's created by a human and not created by a human.
Yeah, and let me tell everybody listening, if it says anything about a rich tapestry, a kaleidoscope, or I think those rich tapestry and kaleidoscope are the two that ChatGPT or Claude or Grok always spew out. But Grok also spews out, anti-Semitic racial things. So, kidding.
I saw a photo of you from the Voyage LA Mag interview, which had you at some Egyptian ruins. And since COVID's over now, it sounds like you've actually been able to travel a little bit.
It's now less COVID, more 4-year-old that keeps me from being on the road as much.
But you did get to go to Egypt recently, am I right?
Yeah, that was September 2002. Yeah.
Wait,
whoa, no, that's not recently. 2002?
What year are we in?
It's
24.
It's
So-
Nick Cage plus 5. No.
Yeah. I basically, my year, instead of going from the year Jesus was born, goes by the year Nick Cage won his Academy Award. So that was 94. So we're 20 years, Nick Cage plus 20. And
That's moonlighting, right?
no, it was Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh.
Yeah.
He didn't win for moonlighting? No, Cher won it.
Cher won. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're right. There was Egypt 2022 was not so recent. It was September 2022. It was a trip I was trying to plan. I was supposed to go in March of 2020, actually, or May of 2020. And we can all know why that didn't happen at that time. But then I've been to since more national spaces, and then also doing my first international trip with my daughter in June of this year, and we're going to Costa Rica. So travel has still been a big thing. It just hasn't been the kind of languid experiences that I used to take, where I'd be like, all right, I'm out for 6 months and I'll see you with a beard.
So
I
your wife
guess
is supportive of family traveling, and
Oh yeah. I mean, we knew from the get-go that travel was important to both of us. And when she graduated from high school, we actually graduated the same year, went to the same high school. We were friends, but we weren't together at the time. She went to Europe and did kind of the quintessential 18-year-old Europe backpacking thing. And she was going to go to school in England because she had family there, but ended up coming back for family health reasons to be close to them. And I kind of did something similar. I don't know if you can hear that train. They just really wanted me to tell this story. So the train goes by making loud noises.
don't hear it at all.
Oh, wow. And I had to call it out.
Yeah,
Shame
that's
on
okay.
me. But
there was a little bit in there.
Yeah.
There was. But it just added romance.
You know what? We'll put one in. Don't worry. We can do this in editing.
Trains for Europe. That's all. It was trying to bring back that ambiance. I moved to Italy when I was 20, and I did a year abroad there. And that's what kicked in that travel bug. But we knew from those experiences that we wanted to just keep going, keep traveling, especially together. When we got married, we had about 6 weeks in Los Angeles before we moved to Rome together, and we spent 8 months there. And we came back because I don't know if you have any Italian listeners that are specifically doctors in the Italian health industry, but man, they were incredibly sexist when it came to her being sick, like unnaturally sick. She could not drink water without throwing up. She was pregnant. My wife is 5'2" and weighed like 100 pounds soaking wet at the time. And she dropped 10 pounds while pregnant because she couldn't eat anything. And this was in the first 4 to 6 weeks of pregnancy. I was giving her shots of anti-nausea medicine that wasn't even working. It was like just enough so she could drink something, like something meaning water. And that was the reason why we came home. We were like, we got to come home, which worked out for 2 reasons. One, we got our daughter, who we love dearly, obviously. And 2, 6 months after our daughter was born, COVID hit. And we would have still been there because my wife was doing a dissertation, and Italy got hit so hard, lockdown. We would have been far from family with a newborn, unable to get any reprieve. So, I mean, in that regard, it worked out for us. Didn't work out for, I don't want to be glib. So yeah, I guess I don't want to be so glib. Sorry if that came out as like an asshole.
There it is.
No, I mean, you're just being thankful for good fortune. And in this case, misfortune became good fortune. The inadequacies of patriarchal doctors in Italy turned into the impetus for where you landed, where you needed to be.
Yeah. And it also gave us a newfound love for Del Taco.
I won't ask.
Yeah. You come off the plane and the first thing you eat is Del Taco and a Slurpee, and you just, this is America.
So does your daughter have a predilection for tacos now?
She actually kind of does for tacos, for pickles, and for olive. Oh man, the kid goes through olives like a monster because my wife was just going through like a Costco sized tub of olives during her pregnancy, and watermelon. Those were like the 3 things, but the kid does love Del Taco. I don't know if she actually eats it, but she always wants to order it.
And then she just stares at it.
Yeah. And then I watch her say, I'm going to eat this later. I'm like, okay, but I don't know if I ever watch her eat it.
Hey, I have a question here. Mark, like you didn't read the whole chapter, but you said like the beginning of chapter 1 was sort of really hard hitting. Is that your experience?
Yeah. Well, the descriptive nature of it and the introduction of the characters, let's just say it, like cruelty. I mean, she is out for blood. And rightly so. Like, there's no context for why. We just must know that this Mr. Maraud character has done some things really wrong. And in the second paragraph, of course, it just keeps getting better, right? And again, I'll just say peaches enter the picture quickly. I think, Apple and Amazon putting those previews on there really took me to a place of, oh, wow, this is a great book. I definitely want to get it, which is what it's designed to do. Yeah. Right. So in that sense, it's a huge success. And it left me with enough information to be curious and slightly repulsed, but also like, oh, I really want to read this book because I want to know, why is this person this way? Who did her wrong? What's the social context where she thinks this is what she needs to be doing in order to right some social inequity that's going on? And there it is.
All right. So, Doug, you said earlier you couldn't go the whole distance of making her a sociopath.
Yeah.
So from what Mark's bringing up, there are seeds of that in this story.
Yeah. I mean, it's the disassociation. That's the key, kind of the reasoning or justification that she gives herself to do this, but that disassociation that allows her to take pleasure in it. And that's where I could sow the seeds, that borderline, that sociopathy in a way. But I had to give her a reason beyond just wanting to, right? There had to be a justice angle, or for me, and maybe not all people or all writers or all readers need that. But for me, I just needed that piece. So I knew how to write her, and I knew what that connection was, because it also meant that she had a deeper reason for why going after this guy, or why going after all the guys that she's ever gone after before. And whether it was specific to that person or the type of person. And without that, I just couldn't, I couldn't just give him like, and then it was like, well, what's the point? Why not anybody? Then the rules come involved. And I feel like it's just a retelling of Dexter just in World War II, as opposed to kind of inspired by that piece of Dexter. So I needed it. I needed something as opposed to her.
Well, we end up rooting for her.
That's the hope. And I'm glad. In 4 chapters you do. And I nailed it.
Yeah. Can we go over, both of you? Are we okay?
Yeah, I have time.
I unfortunately have a call that I have to take.
Okay. So we need to wrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this going to be, people are going to be like, oh, why did he leave? He's such a dick.
No, not at all. I think that they'll forgive you. They'll send you boxes of peaches and
they realize that this is it. You're an in-demand author now, and it's really important that you get the message out.
Yeah. Well, if people at me, either on LinkedIn or Instagram or through my website, I had tarot cards made. So if they buy the book, show me receipts of book purchase, and feel comfortable sharing their address, I will send a tarot card, like a signed tarot card, to them.
Damn, I might do that myself. Fuck.
Oh, I love that incentive. So real quick, we got to ask you, Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Yeah. I mean, last time I said Foo Fighters. I still stick with Foo Fighters, but I'm starting to feel like a Foo Fighter Eminem combo would be a really fun get.
All right. Speaking of the theme of your book, are you familiar with Eminem's Bonnie and Clyde 94? I think it is Bonnie and Clyde.
I'm not going to try to be cool and say yes, but I feel like it sounds familiar.
I think it would have a resonance with your character that could be appreciated.
So that's what happens is Girl in the Ashes gets transferred from book 2 limited series, and that's the lead-in song, right? As she's murdering somebody. You got that.
Done by, oh shoot, I forget her name. We got to let you go. Doug, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great. I'm sorry I have to go. It's so rare that I ever have anything to do. And so now I'm like,
Much to your wife's chagrin. She's like, Doug, get a fucking job.
Yeah, pretty much. Just stop writing all the time.
Well, it's always a pleasure to visit you. We hope we get to do it again soon. And we hope that this does really well and that we will someday see the miniseries on Netflix.
Thank you. I am happy to come back anytime you'll have me.
Recording stopped.